What is rent-to-own? Rent-to-own is the layman term for a real estate strategy, legally known as lease option. In the context of your home, it's really a way for one person to buy a house from another person. It is a true form of vendor financing, where the homeowner is the vendor, and they are allowing the buyer to purchase the home, giving them terms in which to buy the home. Those terms are generally in the form of renting the property over a period of time, and during that time, the buyer agrees to fix any credit issues they may have, and a payment structure in which the buyer plans to pay the owner the down payment needed in order to qualify for a traditional mortgage to purchase the home. Now, technically, there are two separate things, a lease and an option to purchase, which are two distinct and separate agreements, and can both be used independent of each other or together. Now, it is possible to have a lease on a property without having an option. You know, that is your standard landlord and tenant arrangement. Now, it's also possible to have an option on a property or land without leasing it. Now, this generally takes place when a developer wants to tie up some farmland, for example, and possibly buy it in the future. They will enter into an option contract with the landowner and agree that they have the option to buy the land at a certain date. They must either exercise their option to buy the property by that date, or they lose their option, typically along with any option money they may have already paid to the landholder. Now, the seller cannot sell the land to anyone else as long as the person has an option on the property. If the option expires without the buyer buying the property, the owner is within their rights to sell the property to anyone else. Now, a lease can be a standard lease for your province or state and is governed by the Landlord and Tenant Act or Tenancy Board or whatever governing body you have for your province or state. Now, an option is governed by contract law and any property acts that may be associated with it. An option is usually two parties agree and enter into a contract, allowing for one party to have the option or the right to purchase something from the other party by a certain date. If the buying party chooses not to buy, they walk away from their rights, plus usually any monies they've already paid to the selling party. Now, since the agreement is governed by contract law, any disputes are settled in court, and the wording of the contracts is vital to winning or losing the disagreement. Now, it is important for you to know your city, province, or state laws to ensure that you are not contradicting any laws that govern optioning or purchasing of, in our case, property and land. Now, you or your lawyer who is drawing up or reviewing your contracts needs to be aware of what is and what is not acceptable to have in the contracts and how they need to be structured in order to stay in compliance with all the laws, rules, acts that may come into play. One thing I need to be clear on, and you'll hear me say this many times throughout these videos, I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on TV. I'm not giving you any legal advice, and it's in your best interest to seek out counsel of a lawyer who specializes in options, option contracts, and property law. A regular run-of-the-mill real estate lawyer will not be the person to talk to. However, they may be able to put you in touch with someone who specializes in this type of agreement. Now, a rent-to-own or lease option is when you put together the lease and the option on the same piece of property, such as in our case. Now, it's important you treat the lease and the option as separate agreements and not put them together. They must stand on their own. Now, we'll get more into agreements in another video, but for now, let's move on to the next video where we talk about how rent-to-own works.